The Final Fantasy VII Remake has been announced again. It's back from the dead, guys. It's a miracle. And we're all super excited about it. I know I am. But what about the original game? I was one who never got a chance to play it. It came out 20 years ago. And I've heard people talk about Final Fantasy VII for all these years and all its critical acclaim. But does it live up to all the hype? Or is it overhyped a bit too much? I should probably mention right now that this is my first time playing Final Fantasy VII. I've played Final Fantasy VI, that was my first game, and then I played Final Fantasy I. So I was very curious about Final Fantasy VII. And I have to say, it's pretty good. Now, it's pretty obvious this game is over 20 years old. If you look at the graphics, even from the modern ports on PlayStation 4 and Nintendo Switch and PC, this game still does look very dated. It looks kind of, not necessarily blocky, but you can count the polygons by pointing at them. Some people don't like that. I knew going in beforehand that it was old. I've seen it before. I braced myself, and I kind of just went with it. After a while, it's actually kind of charming the way the game looks. But enough about the way the game looks. What about the story? The story is probably the thing that people remember. It's the thing people talk about more than the gameplay, more than how it looks. Maybe not more than how it sounds, but we'll get to that. To be honest, describing the story is kind of hard because you don't really know where to start. When you start the game, it sort of starts like in the middle of everything that's going on. But I think that's one of the interesting things about the story, that it starts you in the middle. You learn about the past as you go along, certain events, we see how the characters are now, or how they portray themselves to be, which is one of the major themes of this game. How do you present yourself, and how do other people perceive you? And it sort of just runs through every single character, whether it's Cloud, or Barrett, or Sephiroth. It's sort of just, it's one of the themes of the story. And it works really well. I think an interesting thing about this game also is the tone of the game. And sort of the way it has this loop almost of what's going on. Because a lot of times in this game, you're sort of just going about, and then something happens in the story, or you learn about a character, and it's kind of heavy. And after that, the game sort of just lets you sit with it for a while. And then you're thinking about it. And then afterwards, the game tries to cheer you up, actually. It sort of gives you maybe a distraction, and then you're sort of back on your way. And that's not really something I see in a lot of games today. You could have, a major character moment. It happens, you see a big cutscene, you get out, you go on to your next area, you get some story, you're doing your battles, you go to the next town, and then you're snowboarding down a mountain. It sort of just gets your mind off of what happened, and that's really not something that happens in games today. And that happens a lot throughout the game. Lots of major story beats, and there's also a lot of mini games. And I think that's one of the strengths of this game as well. It's just how much variety there is in it. Because it's not just exploring, watching the story, and battling. There's tons of other stuff you can do. There's snowboarding. You can race chocobos, which are basically, it's like horse racing. There's this entire amusement park area in the game, and you can go see a stage play. You can go on a gondola ride. There's tons of stuff to just break up, the monotony and sort of just add a bit of life. There's the motorcycle chase. Oh my goodness, the motorcycle chase is one of the best moments in this game. The music is amazing. And speaking of the music in this game, the music is composed by Nobuo Uematsu, and he does a marvelous job with this soundtrack. I've been listening to the soundtrack a lot. There's dozens of songs on here that either they put a smile on your face or they put you back in that emotional moment. It pulls an emotional heartstring, and I think that's part of why the story works so well, is because the music's there to accompany it, and it's just so well done. I personally, I love the Final Fantasy VI soundtrack. That is some of my favorite songs in it. Some songs that they've made me tear up just listening to them again. This soundtrack for Final Fantasy VII rivals it, and it's really amazing. Like, there's so many amazing songs, like the battle theme, the boss fight theme, the crazy motorcycle chase, Aerith's theme, One Winged Angel. There's just so much. There's too much to list. Now, the gameplay is also a strong point for this game. I really enjoyed the gameplay. I will say, having played Final Fantasy VI before playing Final Fantasy VII, you do definitely notice how the gameplay bases itself a lot on what was originally in Final Fantasy VI. Like, with the materia system, it's definitely, you can tell how they based most of it off of the Espers and how they worked in that game. But just the slight variation was made, and it basically changes the whole dynamic of magical attacks and special abilities. So it's neither a thing that's like here nor there, like where one is better, but you definitely do see how they iterate off concepts from older games, if you've played the older games. And as far as challenge, I feel this game hits the perfect amount. Like, it never feels like mind-numbingly difficult, but it doesn't feel like the game is on autopilot. It constantly feels like you have to put all your effort into the battles at hand, and that you're the right level. The only time I feel like I had to grind was right before the end of the game. I was about level 60 and I got most of my characters up to level 70. And then I felt like I could do it with relative ease, having all the necessary items with all the gil or the money, and all the experience points I got, and the limit breaks I learned. And I haven't even mentioned limit breaks. When your character gets damaged, you build up this meter, and when the meter fills up, you can do like a super special attack, and it does like a ton of damage. So I think that definitely helps in the difficulty. It helps with the comeback mechanic, so that way if you're having a difficulty time, sort of like the scales balance in a way. So if you're utterly demolishing things, then you won't need limit breaks, but if you're having trouble, then it gives you definitely a boost, and it helps you out. Alright, I said a lot of positive things about this game. I have mostly positive things about this game. But I will say, it's not perfect. I do think that it's either the writing or the translation that's kind of wonky, and you almost don't understand what's going on. Now, this doesn't mean the story is confusing. I complimented the story. I think it's great. But there is enough times where it's like, sort of, wait, what are you talking about? Or, like, what's going on? Like, how this game often uses the word clone, and it doesn't really mean clone in the way we think clone. It sort of just means, like, genetic engineered. That's not really what a clone is, so you have to wonder, like, did the writers do that, or was that the translator? Or wait a minute, there's this line. There's this line where you're walking through town, and this girl Aerith comments, "Oh, this guy are sick," and it's like, how did someone thought this was okay? Someone typed this? Like, what? Or there's a line where Barrett, mentioned, like, "Oh, it was all 'cause that pizza," and you're like, what is Barrett talking about? It doesn't make a whole lot of sense. And speaking of Barrett's writing, I do like all the characters in this game. I mean, some of the side characters, the optional characters you can get, because there are optional characters, which is also a plus to the gameplay, I forgot to mention. But their writing isn't so as strong as the other characters, but it's optional, so it's fine. But Barrett, who is the second party member you get, some of his writing is not the best. Like, he has, like, I will say his writing, like, his backstory is good. It makes a whole lot of sense, where he is, where he's at. But some of his lines were just like, they felt like the writers or the translator, again, I don't know which, were just trying to make him like, oh, he's the super tough, super cool guy. And it's like they insert like fake curse, like they put like the sort of digits in there, like the @ symbol and the hashtags, like the cartoons used to do with the fake cursing. And then it's like just to make him seem like tough or edgy. And it's like, really looking at it, it feels kind of dated and awkward and lame. And it almost, and sometimes it can definitely take you out of what's happening in the story. But other than that, I think this game is phenomenal. This game definitely does, stand the test of time. It does deserve to be mentioned 20 years after the fact and onwards. It's not perfect, but it is great. So with that in mind, I would like to give Final Fantasy VII an 8.5 out of 10. This game is amazing. The gameplay is fun. There's lots of variety. The soundtrack is amazing. The graphics, even though they are dated, they are kind of charming. And the writing, although not perfect, it's still fantastic. So that was my review of Final Fantasy VII. If you guys want to see me do a spoiler review of the game, because I definitely would like to get into some of the more spoilery aspects of the story, just let me know if you guys would like to hear some of my thoughts on some of the more spoilery aspects of this game, and then I will definitely follow up on that. Alright, I would like to thank you for watching this video, and I'll see you guys next time.